In this episode of the My Latin Life podcast, we're sitting down with Francisco Chavarria. He's a Mexican American entrepreneur. He has a Bitcoin startup called Yopaki. And in this episode, we're going to be touching on a couple topics. One is being a Mexican American entrepreneur cross border, and maybe where's the best place to raise your family? Is it Mexico? Is it the USA? Keeping in mind opportunities for business, but also family friendliness. We're going to talk about Yopaki as well, the Bitcoin startup, and we're going to see where the conversation takes us. So welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. We welcome Francisco Chavarria to the podcast.
How's it going, Vance?
Doing good, man. I'm still working on my double R, and it comes out better after a few drinks. But how you doing, man? You in Austin right now?
I'm actually right now. I'm in New York, but I live in Austin. I've been there for 3.5 years, which goes by quick. And by the way, compliment on your R. That was
that
was a
wasn't the best R.
masterclass.
I've pulled off better double R's before, but okay, cool. And just so the audience is aware, you're friends with a lot of the guys that we've had on the podcast before. Magic from Bit Refill, Gustavo from his new startup Swapido, Andrew, what's his last name again?
Howard.
Andrew Howard. Probably a few more as well. Maybe Paco de la India.
Yeah.
So a lot of the guys, and so I've known about Yopaki for a while now, probably over a year. Maybe the best story to kick off the podcast is how you put the Bitcoin logo on the Central Bank of Mexico, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good start. You remember this. So we for over a year we've been known to be the ones that did that. We actually do run a company that's trying to make an impact, but that was just a mischievous fu we were trying to prove. Up to last year, this had happened only twice, where a bunch of Bitcoiners got together and they projected the Bitcoin symbol into a central bank. The other two times, I believe it was in Germany, so the European Central Bank, and the other time happened in London. Other than that, it's happened to buildings, but as far as central banks, it's only been those two times. And a bunch of friends and I had the idea of, can you imagine if we were to do this in Mexico? Because obviously, we're not vandalizing, we're not destroying. As if you've seen it, it's a beautiful building. It's in the middle of downtown, opposite to Zocalo and opposite to the Opera House, right down in CDMX. But if I told you the story of all the things that went wrong prior to doing that, you wouldn't believe it, because we had been planning it for a couple of weeks. We had the projector, we had the driver, we had the power source, and 24 hours, 48 hours before pulling it off, a bunch of people started getting scared. Even the people we were renting the projector from basically said, nah, we heard what you're doing with it. We don't want to be a part of it. The driver said, I heard what you're doing. I don't want to be a part of it. They're going to take a picture of my license plate and I don't want to go to jail. Like, this whole thing just became, a bigger thing than it should have. But we had been promoting this as part of another event we had organized, which was we called it a Bitcoin block party.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time a Bitcoin only event that was a non-technical event had happened in Mexico. Just full disclosure, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I've done the whole journey of buying other, we call shit coins or altcoins, and I've gotten wrecked, and I've seen others get wrecked. So we arrived to the conclusion that Bitcoin only. But anyways, so fast forward, we organized this event or this conference, and the gimmicky or the fun thing was, hey, let's do this thing. Let's really show the central bank that it's time to Bitcoin. So the fact that it almost didn't happen and all these people were traveling from different parts of the country and a few foreigners, it was stressful. We were able to pull it off. The cops did show up. That's something we don't publish, on Twitter at the time, but they did show up. No one got in trouble, but they were confused as to what we were doing. And as of right now, post conference, it had like I think at this point there's probably 4 million impressions that it's gone from global media once Bitcoin Magazine retweeted it and a few other local newspapers. I cannot disclose who, but even some local politicians, I'm talking Mexican politicians, reached out and said this is awesome. So it was quite a moment.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it was a sounds like a heist, like a Ocean's 11 type of thing. You had the
Yeah,
blueprint on the table. You're like, cover the exits.
I'll
Like,
have to show you some pictures at some point because we do have footage of this heist site.
and
Yeah,
at least part of it is pinned to the Yopaki Twitter account, so people can check that out. It's at Yopaki underscore on Twitter, and people can go kind of see a little bit of what we're talking there. I'm sure there's even more footage and coverage, but people can kind of check it out. So very cool. What is Yopaki?
great question. And if you had asked me a year ago, it was just the Bitcoin exchange. The idea has evolved and pivoted into still the idea of an exchange. The problem with that, Vance, is okay. So I'm gonna maybe back it up a little. So my co-founder and myself are both Mexican born, but we met because of Bitcoin connections in Austin. So this is maybe a year and a half ago, where I'm exploring on what to do in Bitcoin, and a couple of Bitcoiners said, "Hey, so what is it that you're trying to do?" At the time, there wasn't a Bitcoin only exchange, so we thought someone's got to do it. I get synced up with this other guy who came from a very respected Canadian exchange who worked at Bull Bitcoin with
Mhm.
Francis and some of the other contacts you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation. And when we connected, he said, I think, yeah, I want to do this. I've been wanting to do it, but I'm a tech guy. I'm a developer. I don't want to do the things that you would be doing. So how about we combine efforts and yeah, we start. So it was really nice that at the time we thought, okay, two Mexican entrepreneurs that have done stuff outside of their country now get together to build an exchange. But we found out that it's just not compelling enough. It's just not enough. So today, Mexicans can buy, as you know, Mexicans can buy Bitcoin from Bitso. It's not the easiest or it's not the most simple way to do it because of all the other options that they give you in terms of
Mhm.
tokens and soccer teams and whatnot. So you could get confused and log in and see that there's a Barcelona token and you think you're buying a share of the team and then you find out that you're not. And this kind of stuff happens to older people, right? So we keep thinking, how are we gonna make it? Because we need money too, right? We need to raise. The idea of a Bitcoin only exchange was not resonating with investors, so that was our first pivot into we need something else, right? And that something else came from it actually came because of the party. So last year we had the party, and afterwards, a few people that attended said, "Hey, this is really cool. I would give you a chance and buy Bitcoin from you. However, we have, and this is audience maybe in the high net worth range of individuals, but we have been investing in other assets like Mexican, like bonds, and would love the idea to invest in maybe the stock market, whether it's local or foreign. If you could integrate that into some sort of solution, you definitely have the attention of a lot more investors. And then from there, yeah, you could take your journey into why Bitcoin and why now. So fast forward, we keep, and I don't know, just a side note. Are you familiar with something called the fintech law or the fintech in Mexico? There's a fintech license.
It rings a bell.
Okay, so in Mexico, it's almost impossible to operate any type of exchange or any type of technology company that handles financial instruments. Otherwise, you're breaking the law, and Mexico doesn't mess with that. So we found out that doing just the exchange wasn't going to work because Mexicans still need access to Mexican pesos. As of today, the only way to hold a balance in an account using or having pesos and having access to other instruments is by having a fintech license. Other companies have attempted to do it the other way around, but sooner or later they get shut down, and that's not the route we wanted to take. So fast forward to today, and what we call ourselves is more of a Bitcoin neobank, where our mission really is to put Bitcoin into as many Mexicans' hands as possible. The only way to do that, though, is by offering some of the services that they already know and they've been investing in, like
Hmm.
a Mexican CETE, which is a Mexican bond,
Hmm.
um, and of course, giving them the experience of having access to their pesos. Now, Nubank has made a huge play in the region down in Mexico, and they have talked about offering Lightning services and whatnot. We want to integrate all of those services into Yopaki. As of right now, the app is available, but one of the things we're doing, we don't have the fintech license, by the way. That's something that's we're
Mm.
expecting to finalize by Q1. If everything goes well, we might have it by December. But being realistic, it's more of a February timeline. Um, I know it was a super long-winded answer, but it was important to cover that.
No, for
However,
sure.
we still believe that other people that have never heard of Bitcoin needed to hear about it somehow. So this comes, or this is where the other pivot comes from. We figured, is there a way to introduce Bitcoin concepts to people that maybe don't care enough right now, but it could be done in a fun way? So what we're doing right now, um, you can go into the App Store and download Yopaki. Android is another week and a half or two out, but on an App Store, you can download Yopaki, and the things you can do is one, you can have a non-custodial wallet that is powered by Breeze. So we never touch your funds. We don't know how much you have. You can
Powered by
download
what?
by Breeze. You know
Okay.
Breeze. Yeah.
No.
Okay. It's another Bitcoin only company, and
Okay.
basically we're
Cool.
using that technology. You can go create your seed phrase. If for some reason you think, hey, you know what, this is cool, but this is not for me, you can always take your seed phrase somewhere else as long as you save that, right?
Mm.
And the other element is, if you've been in Mexico for more than a day, even as a tourist, you have probably come across a game called Loteria, Mexican Loteria.
Yep.
For those that don't know, Loteria is the most iconic game in Mexico,
Sort
and
of like a board game.
it's a board game. Correct. It's like bingo.
Hmm.
So maybe for the Anglo speakers, or if you know what bingo is, which is a number is drawn. If that number matches your board, you stamp it, and if you cross, whether it's a row or a whole board, then you win the bingo game, right? In Loteria, what we do, instead of using just numbers, we use images, and these images have been iconic for a very long time in Mexico. As any good Bitcoiner, I opened the rabbit hole of what Loteria really is, and I found out that it's a game that's been around since the 14th century. Started in Italy, then in 15th century spreads into Spain, and then the Spaniards bring that game over to Mexico when they conquered that region at the time, right? Fast forward a couple of centuries, in the 18th century, when Mexico becomes independent, the Catholic Church adopted it to teach and educate the plebs what Christianity really meant in terms of symbols, what a
Really?
cross was, what a
Wow.
chalice was, all of these things. Then fast forward another 200 years, and during the Mexican Revolution, the military used it for the soldiers to entertain themselves. So every soldier was given a loteria board to play. When the Revolution War ends, those soldiers come back home and they bring the Loteria game with them. And that is the first time it spreads into the masses. They show it to their families, everybody starts playing it. And then in the 1950s, beginning of the 1960s, there's a French merchant who moved to Mexico who adopted it to promote his cannery, his products, Saint Jacques, like Clemente Jacques. You might have seen the ketchup and the canned goods somewhere in Mexico. This is the first time it takes on retail.
Clemente Jacques. Not really.
Oh, you're gonna open a rabbit hole here too.
Yeah, I haven't really seen this, but okay, keep going.
Yeah. Um, and ever since, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of iterations of Loteria throughout centuries. So we figured if this has been adopted and used for now centuries, it's time for Bitcoin to take that step too. And we decided to be the ones to do it. Now, whether our thesis proves to be right or wrong, we'll see. But what we've done is we've taken a lot of the
Hmm.
memes and a lot of the
Hmm.
concepts from Bitcoin. We put
Hmm.
them in cards. We put them in an app. And now anyone, and I really mean anyone, can just open the app and play Loteria without having to be a sovereign individual, decentralized. Just play Loteria. If you have a matched card, we give you 100 sats, and those sats basically is a fraction of a Bitcoin, for those that don't know. Um, and from that point, start that curiosity of, oh, so I just got free Bitcoin. Well, yeah, it's very little, but it goes up. So if you
Hmm.
ever want to buy some, why don't you buy it from the same app, which is the app that we have developed? And yeah, I mean, at this point, the game so far has generated a lot of excitement, even from partners in the industry, where we'll be able to do custom cards for different companies. Right now, we're just using the Genesis edition for the original 54 cards, and moving forward, we'll see what type of collaborations we can achieve. But yeah, so super long story on what Yopaki is, but
No, I think this is the first time we've had Loteria explained on the podcast. So definitely necessary information for all LATAM enthusiasts and particularly for Mexico enthusiasts. And yeah, there's all variations, right? So I guess now we got Bitcoin Loteria, which is amazing.
mhm.
There's different types. Like I'm trying to think of an example, but maybe they'll do like Oaxaca Loteria or something like that, and it'll be like all Oaxaca stuff, or I don't know, like
I,
different variations, right?
I can tell your head spinning. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy because yeah, you can do. For example, we do have an El Salvador edition that's on right now. It's waiting to add more cards. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
so currently, for example, there's a card El Bukele, there's Bitcoin Beach, there's a white
That's awesome.
paper and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, you could regionalize it based on not just Mexico but other countries. um, and then of course the art style. One of the goals we have is to collaborate with Mexican and Latin American artists to also create their own versions of what it would look like. For the record, this is not an NFT. It's not a. It's just a card that we want people to play with and have fun with. and
Hmm.
uh, and that's not the core of our business, right? Like we're still a neobank or a Bitcoin neobank exchange. That this just we've spent way too much time on this, but we believe it's important to plant those seeds and have curious people at least say, okay, well, what is this? Oh, this is interesting. Okay, I get it. Or hey, this is confusing, but can I learn more? Another thing within the app today is we have a small learn feature where if you've never heard about Bitcoin, you can go and take micro lessons from a
Hmm.
partner we created in Austin called Jippy. So the difference between crypto and Bitcoin, the difference about self custody, et cetera, et cetera. So this is how we envision the first phase. It's just by giving value, and then phase two, which would be Q1, is to launch the full on exchange with financial services that we might get a little bit of hate because it's traditional banking services, for example, a debit card and so on
Hmm.
and so on. But for us to really achieve the dream or the mission of we want Bitcoin in more Mexicans' hands is this way.
This is awesome. And by the way, for people who maybe aren't interested in board games or they think this is like a huge tangent, it's a drinking game too. So
It
it's
is.
like drinking. It's like drinking bingo. So if you're in Mexico, if you ever hung out with Mexicans instead of just hanging out with, digital nomads all the time, if you've ever hung out with Mexicans and you go drinking and you pick up a 12 pack from the OXXO or whatever, and you go hang out on someone's patio, someone is going to whip out a deck of Loteria cards, and you're gonna basically start playing drinking bingo. Um, And if you want to make friends, buy your own thing of Loteria cards on Amazon
Yeah,
Mexico for like six
yeah.
bucks and bring it out with you, and everyone's going to be down.
It's a gambling game too. Yeah.
Gambling, drinking, yep. Don Clemente. So the Clemente, Don Clemente are the original cards, and Clemente Jaques or whatever jacket
Uh-huh.
is the food brand, and they're actually related.
They're actually related. Yeah.
I
So
never put
he
that together. Okay.
it's wild, man. Yeah. I mean, when he found out that it had been around for centuries, that's I mean, his mind just went there. And yeah, so the original logo, even like the logo that now everyone uses, including ourselves, we just Bitcoinized it.
Mhm.
It came from his agency, at agency at the time. Yeah.
Good to know. I like it. Okay. Let's switch it up a little
Hmm.
bit.
Hmm.
How did you even get to the U.S.? Because you were born in Mexico. You're from Mexico City, right?
Hmm.
Your
Hmm.
kids were born in the U.S. How did you just like the short version of how did you make it to the U.S. and decide to base up in Austin?
Hmm. So I did have the privilege to travel to the U.S. as a kid on during a few summers. And when I say a few, really, maybe it was 4 or 5 years in a row where we had that opportunity, and it was just so awesome, man. Like it was, I'm talking like vintage U.S., right? Like the American dream U.S. And yeah, I remember telling my dad, "This is so cool. I wanna live here one day." And the whole, well, it's difficult, and it depends on what you want to do, and I
Uh-huh.
mean, I'll help you where I can. So fast forward, at one point, an opportunity came up for me to move to the U.S., specifically Florida. And then a couple of friends who lived in Utah at the time said, "Hey, if you're gonna move to the U.S., might as well try Utah. It's a really safe place. There's a lot of Mormons, which is a Christian denomination, um, and from there you can just go anywhere." And that did happen. I ended up moving to not quite Salt Lake, but I moved to a town that's about 40 miles south of Salt Lake, Orem. And fair enough, I got there. It was really clean, really safe. Got a taste of the American dream opportunity. Um, as a student, I I don't know if you know this or if your audience knows this, but when you're a foreign student, you're not supposed to work more than the next number of hours.
Hmm.
And I didn't obey that rule because I had bills to pay, and my parents couldn't help me pay for school fully, so I had to find a way. On top of that, when you're a student in the US, you cannot travel to your home country more than twice. So once in the summer and once during Christmas. And I also didn't obey that. And eventually, one of the times I was coming back, um, I was actually, yeah, I was caught red-handed by an immigration officer. Things turned ugly, and I was deported. I was told, "You'll never come back to this country. Uh, you've worked more than you should have. You've traveled more than you should have." And in terms of what I was doing, I was an outstanding citizen, whatever that means, right? Um, so I had a girlfriend at the time, which we ended up getting married, and my return to the U.S. was, it took longer than I thought. Maybe it was about 2.5 years, and by the time I came back, a lot of things had changed, right? Where, oh man, this place is tough. Like I was doing everything right, and got into the tech sector. Fast forward a couple of years and moved from Utah to Austin, which has been now 3.5 years.
And how you
But
liking
yeah,
it?
man, Austin is it's special. There's a lot of problems in the city for sure. No place is perfect. Uh, but it's cool for what I'm doing right now in terms of building a startup. It's a great space.
Hmm.
Weather wise, I mean, we have more than 300 days of sunlight, so that's great. It gets really warm during the summer, but yeah, we're liking it. We're liking it there.
And one or multiple of your children were born in the U.S.
They were all born in the U.S. Yes.
How many you got?
Three,
Three. Awesome.
three.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And you know, so to that question, I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Um, they have been to Mexico, but they've never lived. They've never really lived there, and they like the stories and what it will be like to live there. So I mean that's something we can dive more into. But yeah, they were all born in the U.S. Two in Utah and one in Texas.
Cool. Yeah, we'll get there in a sec. I'm curious. So I think I saw on the Yopaki website that you guys are in a co-working space or an accelerator in Austin. Tell
Hmm.
me about
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, that's actually a great question for the people that don't know. So Austin is considered to be a really good place for Bitcoin specific ventures. It's a tech hub, yes, but for Bitcoin specific, it's the place to be. There is a space called there's two main spaces in Austin. One is called Pleb Lab, which is I work out of Pleb Lab, and the second one is the Bitcoin Commons, and we do a lot of stuff together. If you follow any Bitcoiner, whether it's Saifedean or Jimmy Song or Max Kaiser I mean, any of these people have common and hung out with the Austin locals. Uh, yeah, talking Bitcoin, talking finance, talking history, talking money. That's a pretty good spot considering how left Austin is. This is where all the entrepreneurs and the family people really gather, and we exchange all kinds of crazy ideas. So yeah, Pleb Lab and Bitcoin Commons.
And are these things that you needed to apply for as if it was an accelerator, or is it more like a co-working space, just pay the,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, a couple $100 a
It's
month?
Yeah, it's a mix. So let's say if you were to come to Austin, you can just show up. You can drop by one day and work a day or a week. For
Mhm.
us, we were included as part of the accelerator program, so we do have a space, in these offices. But any Bitcoiner or non-Bitcoiner can just drop by and ask away on either how to start a business or just work as a like a WeWork type place. Yeah,
Awesome. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, you're at a good spot, right? Like one of the top startup hubs in the country.
yeah, yeah,
Are
man.
you,
It's
and do you find that there are a number of startups that are kind of doing sort of cross-border stuff with the U.S. and Mexico?
There are, yeah, there are the full transparency, and it's something that we found. My co-founder and I have found to be a sad reality. Is and this is one of the biggest lies told in the Bitcoin space, which is Bitcoin is here to bank the unbanked, and this is it's a hot take, but the reality is we need to talk about it more. In Mexico is not, for example, Bolivia or what El Salvador used to be, 5 years ago. In Mexico, it's relatively easy to get a bank account. Maybe not a full-on, uh, BBVA account or a Santander account, but most people in Mexico, if you have access to an OXXO, which there's 20,000 of them in the country,
Huh.
you have access to financial services. So and a debit card. In Mexico, if you have anyone that provides a service, whether it's a maid or a gardener or any type of other human capital service, uh, if you don't have money to pay them, you can give them a receipt with a code that they can go and take into an ATM, punch that number, and get cash. So this is why this is a tricky, the conversation of we're banking the unbanked. We even explored it at one point, but it's not quite true. What is true, though, is that Mexico has had access to the SPAY system, which is similar to SEPA. It's basically a way to wire money from one person to the other, like a Venmo for Americans. We've had that for a long, long time, for 15 years.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Crema Social. Crema Social is like TikTok for international dating. It's an app you can download right now on your phone, and 3 out of 4 people on Crema are single women. The app was founded in Colombia So, unsurprisingly, there are a lot of Latinas on the app, by the way. So, how does it work? Crema Social is a social meal experience where you invite a hot girl for a lunch date via video call and food delivery. New concept, so you'll have to try it out for yourself, but this is probably the best way to meet Latinas before you visit the country. So if you're in Latin America or planning to visit Latin America, download Crema Social now and start getting dates right away. There will be a link in the description to download, or just search Crema Social on your favorite app store. Have fun, guys. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by BitRefill. BitRefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. If you are a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Holtze, the author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond $20K a month. So what is job stacking? It's this idea of working multiple remote jobs. You might have heard Rolf, he's worked 5, 7, even 9 remote jobs at the same time before. And by the way, job stacking works equally well for non-technical roles. So no, it's not just for the nerds. So if you're ready to job stack, then book a discovery call with Job Stacking and see how they can double your income in just 9 weeks. In the show notes in the description, there will be a link where you can book a call directly on the Calendly of Job Stacking and be talking with them as early as tomorrow about how to double your income as quickly as possible.
Except it's very limited. So you basically, someone says, hey, I paid for tacos tonight, just send me a spay, and people will just save you in their contacts like a Venmo and send the payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
The limitations of this, though, is you cannot invest in anything else. The money doesn't grow, so you're not saving any money. You're just doing transfers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it stops. So the innovation has really stopped there. Mexico was ahead on that, but it has stopped. Now, to answer your question, or your original question, are there other companies looking into cross-border payments? The answer is yes, but as soon as they get into the hurdle or the pain in the ass of what the fintech license requires, that's where a lot of dreams stop too. And we know, because we've been building, or we have been in building mode for a while. And once we found out how difficult it really is to get this specific document that not all countries have, it's a regulatory nightmare, and it's really complicated.
And do you think it's more complicated trying to manage it from the US?
That's actually, I really like this question. Ironically, so there are some benefits to living outside of Mexico for this specific example. My co-founder did live in Switzerland, later Spain, and more recently he moved back to Mexico. But moving outside of Mexico does open other opportunities of, let's say, networking, the VC circle, and also seeing what else is out there in terms of finance technology. So taking it to Mexico and try to unify all of these apps and all these technology opportunities. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Again, the market will speak, right? And we could be completely wrong, but but we do think that there are benefits to doing it from the outside. Having said that, there's also the cultural aspect, because you can make a case for, well, I mean, why don't you just hire a bunch of guys from Wharton and Stanford and Harvard and go run an exchange down there? Well, then you would be missing out on that cultural piece, which is the other side that we provide because we grew up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Like you kind of want people who have a little bit of both, right? Maybe they
Yeah,
have financial
yeah,
services experience, but then also local knowledge or Mexican, maybe like Mexican Americans like yourself. That are you a
you
U.S.
got it.
citizen yet?
Yeah, not quite. And so we'll just check this out. So I travel all the time, right? Last time, or the last two times I've gone back into the country, the immigration officer did tell me, "Oh man, when are you gonna get your citizenship?" Because every time, but in Austin they already know me, and yeah, the last two times it's been almost like I haven't had time. The problem with that too, though, is as you know, the U.S. is really chummy when you're a foreigner, or sorry, when you're a U.S. citizen. No matter where you work, you still have to pay taxes. No matter where
Yeah,
you are, right?
yeah.
So not really thinking of doing that just yet.
They want you to become a citizen so that you vote for Kamala.
That's so true, man. Yeah, that's like yeah, that's it. Yeah,
And do your kids have Mexican passports yet? Are they dual citizens?
not yet. We're in the process of that. Yeah, just as of this year. Yeah, yeah, I know.
We can help with that. We can
Okay,
help.
let's
We can get
let's let's
some
let's
Mexican
see.
lawyers on the case. Get get
Okay,
uh
cool.
get their Mexican passports.
If this is yeah, let's sync up about that because this is yeah, this is something my wife and I have been talking about more and more. So yeah, let's definitely chat.
Definitely no downside, and you'd get them faster than you think. Like probably, definitely less than 3 months.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Okay, now I'm okay. I'm surprised about that. Okay, yeah, definitely. Let's chat.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And I guess that kind of leads into the one topic we wanted to talk about, which is you're actually considering maybe moving back to Mexico
hmm
for the kids. Tell me about that calculus.
hmm So there's two layers to that. One is just as much as I said I love Austin and I love some of the bigger cities in the US, it's unavoidable to see that it's not the US that it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And I will always love this country, right? Like, of course. But you can tell. I mean, you can tell that it's in decline. That decline can last 50, 100 years. Who knows? It takes time. It's not like the place is just gonna disappear and go to hell. But you can see a decline in services. You can see a decline in the quality of just infrastructure, buildings, and the education system. For me and my wife, that is the biggest piece of red flags. Um, of course, yeah, we're if you want to call it old school, conservative, whatever, the kind of stuff we have to deal with our kids and their books and the books they're being told to read, everything you see on Twitter about the type of indoctrination that is happening, it's not exaggerated. It's not. Parent teacher conference that we show up to and all the weird, trans flags and all this, you can be whoever you want. Like we just, I would imagine the type of audience you have has similar views, but if not, that's my view and my wife's view. Yeah, we don't really we're not enjoying that part because it's bringing other layers of confusion and it's just not good, man. Now, on top of that, speaking of decline, the foods we eat, we travel to Mexico and we travel to other countries, Southeast Asia, and where we notice we feel more bloated or tired or any other uncomfortable moments. It really is when you're consuming what you're being fed in the U.S. The list of ingredients again, if you see it on Twitter or if you hear about it from even like an RFK right now that's talking about making America healthy again. This
Yeah,
is this is very true. Um, you don't get that. We don't get that in other countries, and I don't know it depends which ones, but all of that having kids it hits different, and because of that, that's layer one, right? The decline, health, school, and all that. And then layer
makes
two would
sense.
be the business that we talked about, which really we're targeting Mexico as our first country to really introduce our services. It just it makes sense for us to make a move. Um, If we do, it would be probably around that first quarter of next year, February, March. So make it align with our license to operate. And my wife, by the way, she's American. She doesn't fully speak Spanish, so that will be another plus. And the fact that it's been a conversation for the past year, and now we started talking about the plans at what it would look like, where will we live, in terms of what zone, what's our day to day like, how safety, and all those things you read in the news that they're really just exaggerated. Any big city has its problems and
Mhm.
crime, but we've never faced any of that, at least not with the family. Um, yeah, we're heavily considering it. Most likely, it would be Mexico City because of the business, but but on a personal level, man, we really like Merida. Oh man,
Mm. Like
Merida is
Merida.
just
Okay.
it's really nice. It's I believe it's still the safest place in the country, and you can't beat the beach, right? And fresh produce and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
Um,
they got a bit of a Bitcoin community there for sure. I know
it,
there's
yeah,
a group or two, like a Telegram
yeah,
group or something.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. And there's yeah, Amanda, she's Canadian too, I believe. I don't know if you know Amanda. Yeah,
I don't know Amanda, but I remember seeing like a Merida Bitcoiners group or
yeah.
something.
I'll have to
Yeah.
connect. I'll have to connect you guys at some point. Then, yeah, she's doing an effort, and then of course there's a Mayan Bitcoin club, and yeah, there's stuff happening out there. In my opinion, it's still slow. It's just adoption is just slow, but the country has a growing population, one of the youngest populations in the world. Um, the acquisition over the last couple of years, regardless of political views, the truth is Mexico's infrastructure has improved, and the expectation is that it should continue on that path. That's why there's some people moving to that part of the world, or specifically to Mexico. So we don't want to be left behind. And yeah, man, we're heavily, heavily, heavily involved into making it out. If not by February, excuse me, it will be by the next school year.
Hmm. Yeah, that's cool. You think you do like maybe a summer winter thing? Maybe summers in Mexico City, winters in the Yucatan, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's the other piece. Even right now, living in Austin and having a history in Utah, that looks like a great opportunity. I'm so sorry. I got an itch in my throat.
No problem. No, I totally get it with the school thing because with everything that you mentioned, when you think about the schools, it's like, what is the calculus on schools? You go to public school in the U.S. and the pace of the education is very slow. The quality of the students probably isn't that great, and the quality of the teachers and the curriculum really isn't that great. But then you look at private schools, and it's so expensive, it's insane. And maybe you could corroborate this. I'm not sure how much you've looked into it, but what I've kind of noticed in my sort of limited research into this, I don't have like school age kids, but I have lots of clients that I help with relocation and everything, families, retirees, everything. And it's like in the US, it's very binary. It's like school is either free or like $20,000 a year and up, $30,000 a year and up. And
Yeah,
there's nothing in between where it's like like 5K a year, or like there's not much of that at least. Maybe like some Catholic schools or something. But
uh-huh.
in Mexico, I find that there's schools at every price point. Like there are ones that are maybe like whatever, like 1,000, 2,000 bucks a semester, or there's more
Hmm.
expensive ones that are, maybe like 5,000 bucks a semester or whatever. And so they kind of have private schools at every price point. Whereas in the US, it's either like free or like absurdly expensive.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell?
No, it does. I'm surprised you've done your homework even without kids that are attending school yet. Yeah, yeah, that's that's the case. In Are you familiar with a school in Mexico called UNAM?
Yeah, sure.
So UNAM really, it is one of the best schools in the country. I didn't go there, but it's one of the best schools, and it's a state-owned school. It's free, right? And
Hmm.
then you have the opposite. If you do want to go to school just because of the networking opportunities, then sure, go to Anahuac or go to Ibero, and then pay almost US type uh, semesters. Sure. But now, if you want to go to another school where you're going to get the same level of education, maybe not quite the same type of network, but then also not the free version that the government provides, yeah, there's a middle point. And yeah, here it's messy, man. And it's one of the points I made earlier about the decline in the services. I did grow up, or sorry, I did go to school in Mexico all the way through my let's see, yeah, I mean, I graduated high school there, and then university journey kind of started here, or half and half. And I see a difference with my kids and the stuff that they're going over right now. I'm thinking, wait, really? This is what you guys are doing right now? I mean, maybe I went to a strict school, who knows? But this kind of stuff is just, it's too easy, right? Like, what, I don't know if they cared for you to really learn these concepts, which, by the way, some of these concepts have changed in terms of how they teach math and the expectations of the students. It's just nuts, man. But it's funny that you've noticed the difference in going from, hey, here's 10 different options for you.
Yeah, because I've I'll just like Google the schools, kind of like, and see what the prices are, and be like, okay, this one's like whatever, like 2,000, 4,000 bucks a year, not bad. And then
Yeah,
I'll look at
yeah,
another one, and they got the private school uniforms,
yeah,
and it's like it's all good. It's like, okay, that like seems good enough. You know what I mean? Like it's like we don't have to go crazy here. We don't have to
yeah.
do the 30K one. Like this one seems okay. Um, so yeah, I mean. So you're kind of saying that your Mexican school almost had a more rigorous curriculum than the Texas school?
By far, by
By
far.
far. Wow.
Yeah, like not even close. Like it's really not even close. It's yeah. I was a little shocked about that, and maybe most people wouldn't imagine that because of a connotation of Latin America, right? Oh, they're so behind on
Uh-huh.
everything, right?
Uh-huh.
But the school system, and even in terms of the how we organized our planners and the expectations of teachers and the syllabus and all that stuff, I would say maybe an entire year and a half ahead. And then, of course, the problem maybe, and this is just a theory that I've talked about with friends and even with my parents. I mean, maybe by the time you get to university, that's maybe when the U.S. says, okay, now let's really take this serious, right? Like the ones that
Yeah.
really want to go to school, now you really get the full on education. But anywhere from kindergarten to the 12K system, it's a walk in the park. I mean, in my opinion, in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Here's another funny one, because I live in a pretty like a jungly area of Mexico. It's like
Mhm.
I live in one of the coffee regions,
Nice.
and there's like this hippie school kind of out in the jungle, like a little bit outside of town.
Uh-huh.
But I guarantee it's not like woke hippie. It's more just like learn about nature hippie. But if you
Yeah.
go to something hippie in the US,
Oh,
it's not going to be the good kind of hippie. It's going to be like
I gotcha.
super, like
Yeah.
question everything type hippie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I feel like here,
A
it's
hundred
not going to
percent.
be like super question everything. It's just going to be more like, okay, yeah, let's like spend time outside. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
A
so I don't
hundred
know.
percent. I'm gonna steal that because that was actually a very good, clear way to describe the differences. Because it's like, does Latin America or Mexico, let's say, are there hippies? Yeah, there's tons. It's just different. They're just not woke.
Yeah, yeah, you can be hippie without being woke. Because
Yeah, exactly.
LATAM proves this possible.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. You wouldn't do El Salvador? You're like, yeah, back to
Um,
Mexico, or
I'm so glad you asked that. Um, No, no, because I actually have it's a positive answer. Yeah, I really like El Salvador too, and it's still not what you see online. It's not quite there yet, but of course, I mean that country has been completely forgotten by everybody for decades. Um, I don't know. Have you been, Vance? Have you made
I
it
have
out there?
not been yet, but by the time this podcast comes out, I might have been because I might be booking a flight for this week.
That's cool. Okay, so you're probably going to Bitcoin Beach and all that stuff, El Zonte, and
I'll do
oh,
the tour. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, yeah. I think you'll like it. It's cool. You can tell that there's change. I have gone 3 years in a row now during
Wow.
adopting Bitcoin, so I've seen a difference in the infrastructure. I think that the people in general have a you can tell there's a positive outlook on what's happening in the country. Yeah. So long story short, or the short answer is, would I consider it? Yes. Yeah. I don't know when. That would have to be after Mexico, which that's already two Latam countries that I would probably live in after the U.S. But yeah, man, and there's already a lot of expats living out there. I mean, there's a good community.
Nice. Um, so a couple kind of like maybe random
Mm-hmm.
questions as we kind of get to the end here. I wanted to come back to so I saw that you're doing the CETES, right, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, which are like Mexican bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, I just purchased my first CETE like
Wow,
this week.
is that right?
I did a 3 month CETE.
Mm-hmm.
What would be different about it if I did a Zete on your platform? Just the fact that I could buy it in Bitcoin and then what? Do you return to me Bitcoin or you return to me pesos or what would be different about buying a
Mm-hmm.
Zete through you guys?
hmm So the easiest way to describe it for you, if you figure it out, that's great. But for a lot of people that have maybe a banking app, BBVA, and then they have Bitso, and then they have Cetes Directo, and then maybe they want to buy a stock and it's impossible or it's really difficult to buy Tesla or Apple stock. What we would do is just integrate it all. So let's say you buy Bitcoin from Yopaki. If you want to leave some custodial and some non-custodial, that's up to you. We always recommend, hey, take it out. But if you want to buy, yes, leave a cash balance. Bitcoin goes up, and maybe you take that 10% and say, or you can automate it too. I want the 10% that I made in my Bitcoin to be invested into CETES. So that's what you will be able to do. So you can move it from one place to the other without having to open 20 apps and without having to do 30 clicks or taps. That would be the main congregation of all the data into one
Okay. So again, so would I be buying the Sete with pesos or with Bitcoin?
with pesos.
With
Yes.
pesos.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the benefit if I go to you?
So the benefit is you can just take your Bitcoin gains, let's
Uh
say
huh.
from the app, and instead of having to send them to your bank account, and then from your bank account to go back into the Cetes Directo, you can just do it all from the one place. So, oh,
Okay.
Bitcoin went up.
So I cash out some crypto to fiat on your
You got it.
platform and
Correct.
then I can spend the fiat right away in
Correct.
Cetes.
That is correct.
Okay.
And it's the same terms, by the way. So you still choose if you want to do, the three. You said you did a 3 month. Yeah, you can do a 3 month or whatever other options you have right now. And I would imagine you used either Cetes Directo or Finamex, one of the two. There's only like three good platforms that are used right now. Most Mexicans that use it have access to.
It was through Scotiabank, so
Okay, okay.
I don't know what they use behind the scenes.
It's probably Cetes Directo, which
The
is the
Cetes
government.
Direct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you look at their website, it looks like it was built in the 1990s. No, it really isn't, and it hasn't changed. But there's a lot of when it comes to technology. Sometimes Mexicans we're a little conformists. Like we just like, that's okay, it works. Is there anything better? I don't know. If you show me, then I'll use it. But so that's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And there's other financial products too. So I guess the idea is when you sell your Bitcoin, just like you can quickly invest it in the markets, or are there any kind of other cool cross-functional
hmm
crypto fiat type features with the traditional financial instruments?
Yeah. The only other crypto that would be involved would be USDT
Uh-huh.
because of the power that the dollar still has in Mexico. So people like to have dollars. If you want to have a dollar account, it would have to be in a stable coin. Other than that, if you want to access other financial instruments, let's say specifically a stock, right? Where a lot of the millennials that are entering the fintech or the neobank space right now, that's what they want to do. They say, "Oh, cool! I wanna have a few shares of Tesla." or a few shares of Nvidia. So if we can provide that in one place instead of having to open 15 apps, if you've been around Mexicans, you probably know, like, oh, check this out. I have this and I have this and I have this other one. And okay, just do it all from there. Now, the benefit to that too, having it all in one app, would be, let's say you have your set this, Bitcoin goes up another 10% in the last 2 hours. You would also have access to your debit card, to your Yopaki card. So
Mhm.
again, you don't have to
There's a
open
there's a
20.
Yopaki debit card.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah. So all integrated into one. You can sell your stock, right? Same thing. Actually, that's a lie. The stock is still has to, because we don't actually own the stock. We have a partner that deals with that. But if you sell your Apple stock and you want to use your balance from your card, you do have to wait the settlement, which is 24 hours, 24 to 48, depending on business days.
That's
But
fair.
the idea is to have it all in one place.
I didn't know there was a
Investments,
debit card.
savings. Yeah, it's well, again, fintech license, man. That's the magic key right
And the
there.
debit card is already out.
No, we need that's the one piece we need. So
Okay.
February, most likely February. Oh, and just a little teaser for you, since we talked about Loteria. When we do launch that campaign in Q1, users will be able to choose a Loteria card to be their debit card.
That's sick. That's
Yeah,
pretty sick.
yeah.
Oh man, I'd be like El Catrín, La Campana,
El borracho.
El Borracho. Yeah, that's a funny
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Might spend it, lead to some bad spending. That would get some laughs at the bar, eh? It's
At the
like,
table, yeah. Pull out
yeah,
your
it's just like, sí, la cuenta, porfa, con tarjeta. And then it's like, El Borracho
Loteria.
on the card.
Let's hope so.
That's funny. Okay, cool. So maybe people should sign up now, kind of get on the early wait list, something like that, and wait for that debit card to come out.
Q1. Yeah.
Q1. Okay, cool.
And
And
the website you mentioned, by the way, sorry to interrupt you. I know we're at the end of this. Yeah, that website will be changing in the next month and a half. Yeah, we're updating it so it's more clear as to the services we're offering and talk about that card and et cetera, et cetera. So
okay, cool. Well, there'll be a link in the description at least to your Twitter and the Yopaki
awesome.
Twitter, and then if the website
Thank
changes,
you, Vance.
all
Thank you so much,
good.
man.
And then of course people can just the name's not changing, right? Still gonna be
No,
Yopaki.
yeah, so
Okay.
Yopaki.
So
Yeah,
yeah, if you just search on the App Store, you can get the app as well, right?
thank you so much. Yeah, the name, by the way, it's a Nahuatl name. It's a Aztec or yeah,
Mm,
Nahuatl name. Yeah.
mm.
So
What
yeah,
does it
we can
mean?
change that. It means the in pursuit or the search of happiness.
Hmm. Cool. I like it. Do you want
Right
to
on.
share any final message with the audience?
Yeah, just check us out. Obviously, here's the commercial, but yeah, this is something we my co-founder and I have really put our heart and soul into building. Mexico is really important to us as our home country, and the rest of Latin America as a place where there's still a lot of opportunity. So if you can support our mission and vision to bring more financial tools into that area, please, yeah, it's yopaki.com. And then, of course, the Twitter, as you mentioned, at yopaki underscore.
Perfect. Well, this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, our guest today, Francisco Chavarria from Yopaki. Thanks everyone for listening. Remember to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to this, because we put out 2 episodes a week with amazing guests like Francisco. Ciao for now.
Thanks so much, Vance.